Hi, Chelina. I just wanted to thank you for agreeing to speak with me today. Just to start, I wanted to ask you to sort of briefly introduce yourself, your major, the high school you went to, and then how you're sort of doing so far, just that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Chelina. I'm a third year bioengineering major at UCSD. Um, there's, if you know UCSD, there's also like multiple colleges within that. I'm enrolled in Revelle College. I think it says on my sweatshirt as
Mhm.
well. I went to Monte Vista High School, graduated class of 2020. So that was, right when the pandemic started.
Mhm. Mhm.
What have I been up to recently? I came back from my kendo tournament this weekend in LA, but that was about it.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. I think just to start, I wanted to ask you about how you became interested in bioengineering and if you were introduced to the field during high school at all, or is that something you became like more interested in after coming to college?
For sure. Yeah, in high school, I did robotics for like pretty much all 4 years of high school.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's a FRC, first robotics competition, if any of you guys know that. So I worked in the mechanical engineering division of that, and I would just like really like designing things, computer aided design or CAD, um, building things,
Mhm.
all that sort of stuff. But I guess okay, I have to blame my parents for this. Like, oh, what about being a doctor? And I was like, I
Mhm.
kind of like engineering, but there's so many disciplines of engineering
Mhm.
that I was like, I don't really know which one I want to go into. I was thinking of like more mechanical engineering, but I didn't really want to do like cars or like planes or anything,
Mhm.
which seemed to be like a large part of the mechanical engineering industry.
Mhm.
So I started looking into like, okay, maybe I can satisfy both myself and my parents. That's like, up to each person to decide of like being a doctor and an engineer. So I found like bioengineering kind of merged the fields of medicine and engineering together. I was
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe I can look into that. By the way, looked at the 4 year plan, and I realized how many more classes I would have to take in order to also go to med school. So I will not be going to med school. I will just be an engineer.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's how I kind of got into bioengineering.
Okay. Um, yeah, so you sort of talked about this already with your robotics club, but I wanted to ask you about because a lot of our audience members are high schoolers. It would be nice to know more about the things you did in high school. So maybe like classes you took that are still relevant today, or
Mhm,
like clubs or extracurriculars you were a part of. I guess apart from robotics that are
mhm.
important to you today. Or just it doesn't necessarily have to be academic. Like, oh, I did this and it helped me with this in college, that sort of a thing would be great.
Yeah. I would say clubs. I think the biggest one was probably robotics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because it introduced me to CAD and like gave me a problem, had me design something and then build something according to that design for that
Mm-hmm.
problem, which is if you take any like intro to engineering class, that's pretty much what they ask you to do. So it was nice to be able to do that in high school. Um, what else prepared me in terms of classes? I think this varies depending on what college you go to. But here at UCSD, I found that taking like AP Sciences just cleared a lot of prereqs for me, which was pretty nice.
Okay.
So like I took AP Physics 1, which actually didn't clear any prereqs, but since I had to take physics again, it was nice to like take physics in high school so I knew what I was doing before
Oh.
going to college.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, AP Chem cleared a lot of prereqs for me. AP Bio as well, AP Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you get the opportunity to take AP classes without like uh if it's like in your capacity, don't overload yourself. But if you can take it, definitely take it.
Okay.
What else did I do? Mm, I would say just like in general, if you're thinking like really far in the future, um, like getting a job, I would say school prepares you more about like how to learn and how to critically think and problem solve more than it gives you like technical knowledge of what to do um, at your job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a little bit of technical knowledge, but a lot of that technical knowledge, if you have like the problem solving skills that you learned in school, or like studying skills, you can just learn on the job. So that was that.
Okay, yeah. So just like going off of that, if you were to give like a piece of advice to yourself when you were a high school student or just high schoolers in general, what would you say to
Ooh.
them?
Let me think about this because right now all I can think about is like, dude, treasure your time because with the pandemic, like nobody saw that pandemic coming.
hmm
Um,
And you graduated during the pandemic too, so you're seeing like
yeah,
the second half was probably.
yeah, that was wild. Let me see. Oh, whatever college you get into,
hmm
what like whether that's like an Ivy League, not an Ivy League, UC, maybe not your dream school or your dream school. Um, I believe that's the right fit for you. So
hmm
even if like the rankings are like, yeah, that's not like as good as XYZ, um, it'll be like the right fit for you. So like don't stress too much about that. And if you like really believe you go into college, you're like, yeah, it really isn't the right fit for me, you can always transfer. So I feel like especially at Monte Vista, we spend
hmm
so much time just like stressing about college apps.
hmm
And at the end, even though like UCSD wasn't my dream school, I'm like really happy where I ended up.
hmm
So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so just how did your college application? Because that's sort of college apps are just over now, and then I guess
Mhm.
juniors are now thinking about things they need to do this summer and just
Mhm.
courses that they would take next year, so that sort of a thing. So I want to ask you like how you decided to go to UCSD, how your college application process went, and any
Mhm.
tips you would give to high schoolers that are sort of maneuvering through this. I can't. Okay. Through this process.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, one tip I wanted to give before I dive right into this is
hmm
I feel like in high school I did a lot of things like I got involved in clubs or took classes. It was like, oh, I had this exact process, like this would look good on my college application. And not because like, oh, I kind of like this or I'm kind of interested in this. Um, like maybe at one point if like you don't really do anything outside of school and you're like, oh, I have a lot of free time. I don't really know what I want to do with that. Aside from like, filling it with YouTube or TikTok or gaming or whatever.
hmm
you know, everything good in moderation. Uh, but I would say don't like throw yourself into like as many things as possible just for the sake of college apps because when it comes to college apps, it's going to be like right about something like that you're passionate about or like something that changed you.
hmm
And if you go into um activities just thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna do this for college apps and not because you're really passionate about, you're gonna have a hard time writing those essays.
hmm
Um, but if you genuinely okay, maybe you join something like I did because like, oh, maybe I'll look good on my college apps, but you like really enjoy it, like robotics. You can write a lot about it and without it sounding like fake or forced. Um, yeah. So I guess more applicable to junior and senior year. I guess I'll talk more about what I did.
Okay.
I think I started college apps. I started looking into colleges kind of late compared to like Monte Vista students. Or maybe my friends are just like tryhards. I don't know. Sort of
I think generally,
summer.
so I'm from like the Tri Valley area, and just generally like the schools there are pretty. I mean, it's not that everyone is competitive, every school is competitive, but they do tend to be sometimes. Like, it's,
Okay.
yeah, so I sort of understand what you mean. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will be relatable then. Yeah, I started looking, I think, into colleges, like specific colleges, or I took the, PSAT, SAT,
Mhm.
etc. in so junior year. Yeah, I took the SAT in junior year. Um, but I only started like looking into specific colleges and like my major around end of junior year, summer, like yeah, the summer after junior year. And settled on a list, started writing down like all the things I needed to apply or all the things needed in that application. I think I also joined or like somehow I got like college applications like 101 workshops, probably through my school. So I
Okay.
kind of knew what was going on around junior year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, once I kind of had a college list down, started writing my essays, started writing in summer, really
Mm-hmm.
just like worked on them when school started. I know a lot of people have essay like or like college application counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have one of those because I was like, I don't really want to pay money to have people do that because I'm already paying money for applications, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So actually my high school or my senior year English teacher was like, yeah, if you guys need help with college essays, just
Mm-hmm.
like hit me up. Or she's like, the first like X amount of people I'll like help out. Otherwise, I'm capped at how much I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was like, okay, I'll take you up on the offer. So she helped me like talk through some things and proofread my essays.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to remember. I think I applied to around 13 schools or something like that. Mostly UCs, a couple of like out of states. Um, and then how I made my decision at UCSD. Um, well, okay, I'll be honest. I kind of like, I know don't the ranking is not everything, but a ranking is also good at like filter like was it
It's
filtering
like
out like
general.
the
I mean,
general
some
like top.
schools are some
Mhm.
schools are ranked because they're like good and they have good
Yeah,
resources and programs. So I mean, in a way,
yeah,
ranking is important, but it's not
mhm,
everything you should be
yeah.
looking for. Yeah.
Oh, it's a that reminds me the words that I was looking for. It's like a good starting point, maybe.
Okay.
So I was
Yeah.
thinking, I was picking between like two schools mainly,
Mm-hmm.
UCSD and Case Western. And for those who don't know, I guess well UCSD is San Diego, UC system, and the Case Western is like in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they did offer me a scholarship, even though private school. So like I was looking at the two of them, and they're both good for bioengineering. Like my mom always told me, like number one thing for college. This can vary for everyone. Like this can vary for everybody, but my top priorities were like quality of education and then
Mm-hmm.
like costs, because college is expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're both in terms of quality of education, they're both pretty good. But then I was looking at costs, and I'm like, it is a private school versus a public school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about
So
location. I didn't
even
think,
with the
mhm.
scholarship, you felt like UCSD was a better option.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Even with the scholarship,
Okay. Mhm.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but
Yeah, that's fine.
UCSC was cheaper.
Mhm. And it's
um,
also closer, which is an
yeah,
advantage.
yeah. I didn't think location would be like that big of an issue when I was applying, which totally fine. You just apply and then you can filter all the criteria later.
Mhm.
Once you get the acceptances or like denials. Um, but I was looking at UCSD and then like Ohio, and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to live in the snow.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, and UCSD is like right next to the beach.
Mhm.
So that's why I was like, okay, UCSD sounds pretty good.
Okay. And
Yeah.
just yeah, how have your classes been? Maybe what opportunities does like UCSC provide for your major? And just
Mm,
how has it sort of been in taking bioengineering at UCSC?
mm. Um, I think the transition from high school to college was pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been also like the fact that I started during the pandemic and remote learning. Everybody was still kind of figuring out remote learning, so it wasn't as hard. Um, Passed all my undergrad math courses in like a remote online format, which is really nice, which meant I didn't have to like memorize any formulas.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think this feeds back into whatever college you're in, it'll be like a good fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt in terms of like academic rigor from like Monta Vista here, fairly similar.
Okay.
It's like maybe even slightly easier for certain classes, especially if I had like prior knowledge in those classes like physics.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I get into the upper div bioengineering courses, that's when it starts to get like I hope you know how to problem solve because these professors are maybe not as organized or not as structured as the uh, lower division
Mm-hmm.
professors. Um, how has bioengineering classes been? I think one thing that surprised me about bioengineering was how broad it was. I kind of came into it thinking of like, okay, I want to do mechanical engineering, but with like a bio focus, and that's what I thought bioengineering was.
Mhm.
But UCSD, actually, is there a question about like the four tracks of UCSD bioengineering, or should I just get into that now?
Yeah, I did not know about that, so if you can elaborate, yeah, that would be cool.
Okay, for sure. I'll elaborate on that. So if you're actually applying to UCSD and you want to do bioengineering, there's four tracks you can apply to.
Mhm.
One is bioengineering. So that's just like the standard bioengineering track. It's more mechanical engineering focused. Um, so you focus on like design, you take some mechanical engineering classes.
Mhm.
Um, what else is there? I think it's like ABET or ABET certified or accredited, which has something to do with some some like engineering exams or credentials you can get later.
Okay.
Um, so that's nice. That's the one I'm in right now, by the way. That's just which is why I know like about a little bit more about it.
Mhm.
There is bioengineering, biotechnology, which is more of like a chemical engineering focus. I think they do a lot more wet lab stuff, and they take more chemical engineering courses.
Yeah.
So bioengineering and biotechnology are probably the two most popular tracks in bioengineering.
Mhm.
Third one is biosystems, which is more of like an electrical engineering focus. So a little bit more about like circuits, and I believe they take electrical engineering classes. Um, and then the last one is bioinformatics. I actually got into UCSD on the bioinformatics track because bioinformatics is like bioengineering plus like CS.
Mhm. Yeah.
So they'll take a look at like DNA, like sequencing and like gene stuff, cell bio.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was like, well, I mean, I heard UCSD is good for CS, so I might as well like get the best of both worlds. But then I like got I got one. Oh, back to the original question about how are bioengineering classes. Yeah, so even though I described those like four tracks, um, somehow I'm like I know I'm like the mechanical engineering track, but I'm still like last quarter and this quarter I'm like taking classes on like circuits and stuff.
Okay.
So I'm
So that's
like
no.
still learning about like all of these different disciplines of bioengineering.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And just okay. Let me think about what I could actually know. Yeah. So so far, just based on your experience, what has been sort of fun about the classes that you're taking, and what sort of challenging?
Hmm. Trying to think of the more fun classes I've taken. One was actually kind of fun because it was like a mechanical engineering class
Hmm?
where we basically they teach us CAD in a couple weeks and then we build a robot, which is like very much
So
like
cool.
throwback to high school days for me.
Mhm.
I think that was very fun and a good kind of intro for us college students on like a real world like problem solving and like design challenge because I find that a lot of like stuff they teach you in school doesn't really translate well to the industry, but project for engineers at least I always hear a lot of emphasis on like teamwork and like projects
Mhm.
because that translates well because yeah, that's what you'll be doing when you work. um Another fun one, I kind of liked my uh last year I took a bioengineering class called like musculoskeletal musculoskeletal like biomechanics or something like that.
Mhm.
And then this quarter I'm taking like the next one in this series, like soft tissue biomechanics. Um
Mhm.
I just find it very interesting to learn about, human body and, be able to like kind of dive deeper into that and use more technical knowledge to explain how that works. And then I also got to was it in the biomechanics like musculoskeletal biomechanics course they had us do a project where like we could pick any topic we wanted and write about the musculoskeletal dynamics behind
Mhm.
whatever topic it was. And then I mentioned before I do kendo, which is like Japanese fencing.
Mhm.
So I like picked a specific motion that we do in that sport or martial art and just like analyze that. So I just got to write about things I thought were fun.
Okay. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So my next, I mean, I also asked you about like what's really challenging about some of the classes that you take. And just yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking of this course I'm taking right now, a design of bioinstrumentation,
Okay.
which I thought like, oh, I kind of want to go into medical devices, so I think this will be interesting or like good for me. But the professor's like lecture style just does not work for me. So I
Okay.
think a lot. This is the same thing for like high school and college classes. Even if like the subject is interesting, it all comes down to your like teacher or professor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that class is a little bit of a challenge. I kind of don't know what's going on, but
Okay.
you know, that's what the TAs are for, and Google, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Um. And yeah, sure. If you want to talk about like kendo and other like extracurriculars you're part of on campus
Mm.
and just how campus life is sort of like things you do, that would also make kind of sense.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I guess I'll just plug right now. If you guys go to UCSD, and you're like, oh, what's kendo? Feel free to check us out. Um, honestly, I only joined kendo because I was like on campus during the pandemic, and I'm like, I kind of want to just make the most of this because most of the classes, or yeah, I thought I would have a hybrid class at least. I did not. It was all remote classes, so I just wanted to get out of my dorm. Um, so I was like, I was scrolling down the recreation website and saw like fencing and kendo, and I'm like, both of those have swords, so I'll try it out. I tried them both out, and I really like kendo, so I just stuck with it. Um, so yeah, I would say, especially okay, first, it's never like too late to start, but especially in freshman year, I think everybody is like just wants to put themselves out there and try everything.
Yeah.
So I recommend that uh, when the time comes, you do that as well. And take advantage of, you know, your first year, getting all that free food. Like every club, every student org wants you, so like they'll just bribe you with a lot of free food. Um, what else is there? Yeah, join student orgs. Could be any sort of student orgs. There's like cultural ones, like and there's like academic ones. It's like sport or exercise related ones. One for like everybody. And I found like a lot of good friends through a lot like two main orgs that I joined, just kendo and then like a church group that I have.
Mhm.
Um, so that's been super nice, and I feel like it really changed my college experience. Because you know, I didn't really want my college experience just to be like school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. Yeah. So you were sort of talking about how bioengineering, like the field can be pretty vast.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering what like your future plans were, how you're sort of experimenting with your classes and what you're sort of thinking of going into and what
Mm,
options are sort of available to you. So you sort of explained this before, but yeah, if you can talk some more about that, that would be.
for sure. Um, man, I was about to say something and I forgot it.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll just start with what my future plans are. I want to get some sort of internship, hopefully locally this summer.
Mhm.
So I've been going to a couple of networking events and just seeing what companies are like nearby. There was like one medical device company that uh, had these sort of how to describe this like concisely. Uh, like personal like handheld devices that analyze your blood.
Mhm.
So I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. I want to check that out. So I want to do something like that. But one thing that I also find that very challenging for myself is time management, especially for like things I need to do that have no like hard deadline.
Mhm.
Um, so I need to get on top of that. There was a second part to your question, right? What was that again?
Was there a second part? So I asked you like your plans for the future, just yeah, like specific interests and just what your options are. Yeah, I mean you sort of covered it. We can move on to a different
Okay,
question if you want. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So I sort of wanted to ask you so far about your experience at the Slack laboratory, and
Ah, yes.
yeah, so how you like applied, how your experience was, and how that sort of was helpful to you.
Okay. I remember applying for like three opportunities. One was SULI or like SULI, summer undergrad research experience or something like that. That one's just
Mhm,
like a whole like Department of Energy wide summer internship program. I think Lloyd might have sent out an email or like will eventually send out an email with like a webinar. They usually do like a Sage Live on those with more information about that. The second one, and that, again, that's applicable to like any Department of Energy lab. So it doesn't have to be Slack if you find that there's like one closer to you.
mhm,
The second one's like LCLS, which is Slack specific, just helping out at the, let me see if I remember the acronym, Linux Coherent Light Source facility.
mhm,
There's a variety of projects. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it's always on the Slack website. And then the third one was the Sage internship, which is like literally geared towards previous Sage alumni. And so I applied to all of that. And eventually they're like, yeah, would you be interested in working with was it X-ray crystallography? And I was just like, sure. I like Googled it for a little bit.
mhm,
And it looked like I think when I went to it, I was like when I went into it, I was thinking of maybe like medical imaging sort of thing because X-ray and the crystallography study of the
mhm,
crystals and like molecules and stuff like that.
mhm,
Um, it was actually not really medical imaging. It was more of like structural biology, which is totally fine. Got to keep an open mind because I actually worked more with CAD and the mechanical engineering side of that because even those like processes or the way they study said crystals or said molecules, they require machines to do that, and I helped out like kind of maintain or build some new design for those machines.
yeah, so if you want to like elaborate on that, we don't have a lot of
Mhm.
time left, so yeah, if you can talk. I
Okay.
remember you telling us something about like a lens, and you were sort of figuring out.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind. I mean, like I asked you for an interview because I thought like what you explained was sort of interesting,
Mhm,
and it seemed fun, like all the things that you did at the lab, and like your mentors and just working with other people and
mhm,
everything. So yeah, if you can talk more about that, and then we can sort of wrap it up because it's been about 30 minutes.
for sure. Yeah, just to briefly recap, I did a couple of things during my internship, but the main project they had me do was put a or design something for their microspectrometer to put in the anaerobic chamber. So to break that down, the microspectrometer is that like fancy pair of lens that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it literally is like one light source and through like a lens, and they shoot the light through a sample in the middle of these two lenses,
Mm-hmm.
and you get like some sort of like spectra, those fancy like graphs with like colors. I
Mm-hmm.
personally don't really understand it because I'm not a chemistry major. Um, but it helps with like identification of the sample or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my job was more of like, how do I get those lens and like the alignment of the sample to all like line up in a compact manner that's user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then put it into the anaerobic chamber. Anaerobic chamber just means that, no oxygen in that chamber,
Mm-hmm.
which is very helpful for like certain crystals, especially for a lot of the crystals we're working with are of like biological origins, so like enzymes and stuff, and then like very sensitive to changes in like pH, temperature, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
oxygen. Um, so in the case that there are crystals that are sensitive to oxygen, um, one thing that Slack wanted to do was um, have a anaerobic chamber or environments for that. So they were like, "Yeah, can you design something for that?" And I was like, "Sure." So I used a lot of CAD and design knowledge from robotics in high school, and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit from that one robot design course that I took in college to really do that project. And was there? I'm actually still working on that project because my internship just got extended over, well, like until now. So I'm just
Okay.
working remotely and putting like finishing touches on that project.
Mhm.
And then a couple other things I did was kind of learn how to grow those crystals that we use for
Okay.
the experiments.
Mhm.
Um, just very basic, like chemistry, wet lab stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and then a couple of like other side projects when I was like, say, waiting for a certain part in my main project to be designed or to be manufactured. I had some downtime, or I was like waiting for someone to check over my design. Um, they were like, yeah, when we run this other experiment and we have a camera, the liquid kind of drips and like pools on the camera cover. So like, can you make something that makes it not pool? So I was able to design something that could be 3D printed and get rid of all that liquid.
Yeah.
Actually, not sure if they've used it yet or like how that was, but I haven't heard any complaints so far. So that was good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time today.
Mhm.
And it was great sort of hearing about your experiences. It's always nice to hear from different people and sort of form an idea of what we want to do and like, what opportunities we have. So thank you so much for spending like 30 minutes of your day sort of talk to me. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime. Glad you reached out to me. And if you have any other questions, either you or like anybody who watches this has any
Mhm.
questions, feel free to hit me up. I guess you can link my email or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm. Thank you.